Welcome to the SVG-TV news for Friday, October 10th. I'm Khalil Kato with the details. This weekend, Vincentians will learn more about their connection to others across the Lesser Antilles and the indigenous peoples of the Americas. This is through the Genographic Project, which is a multi-year research initiative led by National Geographic Explorer in Residence Dr. Spencer Wells and a team of renowned international scientists who are using cutting-edge genetic and computational technologies to analyze historical patterns in DNA from participants around the world to better understand human genetic roots. One of the scientists working on the project is Dr. Jada Benn Torres of the Department of Anthropology at the University of Notre Dame. Dr. Torres, who visited SVG 2 years ago, is back here and told SVG-TV News that on her first visit, she spoke with a number of indigenous persons from various communities around the country and collected samples. She says she is now ready to share her findings and present a country report.
We looked at people's mother's line, so their mother's mother's mother, and then their father's line, a portion of DNA that's inherited from a father to a son. So it tells you about the father's 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 line. And what we found, both in this community as well as the indigenous community in Trinidad, is that a substantial proportion, about 42 to 45% of the individuals could trace their ancestry directly to the first people in the islands. Okay, so that was pretty substantial, especially on the father's side. Oftentimes we think that the native men were decimated as a result of colonization, but their genetic legacy remains, and it remains in their descendants here in the islands.
Right. What would you like to add?
Well, I would say that in addition to those specific findings, we're working in other places like Trinidad and Puerto Rico, as well as other parts of Central America and North America, and we're beginning to see how the pattern of genetic history here, genetic variation, fits within the larger framework of the Americas, and try to understand the pathways that people took to come to this particular part of the world, whether from northern South America, possibly from Mesoamerica, or other places.
Dr. Torres is now inviting other Vincentians to be volunteers and to be a part of the second phase of sampling at this weekend's event.
Not only are we recruiting more individuals that are interested, but for those people who have participated, we actually have the results that we'd like to return to them and to explain more about the study. We'll be at 3 different areas. Tomorrow we'll be at Rosebank around 1 p.m. On Sunday at 5 p.m. we'll be in Sandy Bay. And on Monday, we'll actually be right back here about 9:30 to 1.
All right. When you were here 2 years ago, how many persons you sampled?
We got 65 individuals. So it was a good trip.
The Genographic Project, which began in 2005, is designed to improve the understanding of the paths that early humans traveled as they moved from one place to another around the globe. A number of Vincentians, including government and opposition parliamentarians, joined with Taiwan last evening in celebration of that country's 103rd National Day. Speaking at a reception at the Beachcombers Hotel, new Taiwanese ambassador to SVG, Bashuan Jur, says that Taiwan, with a population of 23 million people, has developed into the 26th largest economy in the world, with a total foreign reserve of $423 billion.
Ago, Dr. Sun Yat-sen, the founding father of the country, overcame trials and tribulations to establish the very first republic in East Asia and formulate a blueprint for the future development of the country. His ideals have now been fully realized in Taiwan, where we enjoy freedom, democracy, and equitable prosperity, and which has become an exemplary model for other ethnic Chinese societies.
And Vice President of the New Democratic Party, Dr. Godwin Friday, says his party is at one with the government of SVG to ensure the relationship between both countries is maintained.
This has been a relationship that has grown from one of tentative steps to one where we have become not just international bodies that have a relationship, but friendships that have formed. There are individuals from my own constituency in Northern Grenadines from Beverly who have studied in Taiwan, some who are still there in Taiwan. And when I was growing up, I would not have imagined that at some point there would be people from my small part of the world who would be venturing so far away but still feeling so much at home in your country.
Meanwhile, this country's Deputy Prime Minister, Gerlin Miguel, extended congratulations to the government and people of Taiwan on their 103rd National Day.
It has been a long time that you have been celebrating. Ambassador, we were here last year and we were also celebrating, and you are new to us, and so we are here tonight to support you and to celebrate with you. And when you speak with President Ma and the other members of your cabinet, please let them know that St. Vincent is still in love with Taiwan.
Businessman Leon Big Samuel is said to have at some point unlawfully occupied 9.9 acres of lands owned by the state. This was pointed out by Minister of State Julian in a recent interview with SVG-TV News.
It should therefore pay compensation for its unlawful occupation of Crown's property and aggregate, if any, that it had extracted from the extra lands. Okay, that's the Attorney General's advice in writing. It is noted that Mr. Leon Samuel of Bigger Cement and Aggregate Incorporated had a survey done in 2012 in an attempt to unlawfully claim the additional lands. It is advised that the said survey should not be registered in the Lands and Surveys Department. Pursuant to the Roads Act, the Chief Engineer has certain powers and duties which he can exercise in regard to roads. His advice must be sought regarding the closing of the Cat Road in this area, which I think will not only hamper the viability of the road network for all motorists and road users, but also eliminate access to agricultural lands and other tourist assets west of Lot 6.
Francis said it must also be made clear that while Samuel was prohibited from mining at Rabaca, he was never hindered from visiting his property.
I got the impression that this is the first time in 4 years maybe that Mr. Samuel has been visiting his $11 million investment at Rabaca, which I find very strange, quite honestly. If I had $11 million, the government never stopped him from going to his land. The government hasn't taken away his property from him. The government stopped the mining operations and will issue the conditions under which he can get back his license if he so desires. He chose 4 years because the matter was brought to a head in February 2011, and he reapplied only in February of 2014, 3 years. So I get the impression that Mr. Samuel didn't even visit his land and his investment in Rabaca for the last 3 years, 3+ years. So the way he expressed concern then gave me that impression. As to why he didn't seek legal action on this matter over the 3 years, maybe things are dawning now as to why he didn't pursue the legal channels.
The sitting of the Eastern Caribbean Appellate Court is expected to commence this coming Monday at the High Court here in Kingstown. According to a release from the High Court office, there are 51 cases listed to be heard. These include motions and applications, High Court criminal appeals against conviction, High Court criminal appeals against sentence, magisterial criminal appeals against sentence, magisterial criminal appeals against conviction, and magisterial civil appeals. The sitting will be presided over by Justices of Appeal Louise Blenman, Davidson Batiste, Mario Michel, and Tyrone Chong. The High Court criminal session, which commenced here on September 30th, has been suspended due to this sitting. In other court news, Chief Magistrate Rashan Brown Mathias this morning handed down a 3-month jail term on Hezekiah Fraser, a 26-year-old pig farmer of Pauls Avenue, after he was found guilty of using threatening language to Letitia Sandy, an attorney-at-law attached to the Financial Intelligence Unit. Reports are that on January 26th, both Sandy and another attorney went to a business house at Pauls Avenue to transact business, and on returning to their vehicle, Fraser, who was in the vicinity at the time, pointed in the direction of the two attorneys and made the threatening remarks. Vincentians are being encouraged to learn more about mental illness, the symptoms, and when and where to seek help. The advice comes from social worker attached to the Mental Health Institute, Kerry-ann Hamilton, speaking to SVG-TV News on the commemoration of World Mental Health Day being observed under the theme Living with Schizophrenia.
It presents itself in the form of delusions, hallucinations, disorganized thought, right? And it also affects the way that people think generally.
According to Hamilton, not many persons understand some of the factors surrounding mental illness. Hence, they saw the need to host the outreach programs as part of the World Mental Health Day.
To the Sandy Bay Government School and also the secondary school, and students will be coming here to have interactive sessions with workers so that we can explain to them how mental illness affects us as a community and a country. It's very important because with schizophrenia, early intervention dictates how well the person recovers after. So once we're able to notice signs or symptoms such as changes in sleep, appetite, changes in hygiene, changes in behavior, and also speech, which is quite common. Schizophrenics tend to have disorganized speech sometimes. Then we're able to come to a mental health professional or the mental health center, casualty in the hospital or A&E department, and you're able to receive the necessary referrals to facilitate an intervention in order to help your family, your friends, or your relatives.
Violence against girls limits their opportunities and choices, threatens their future, and affects generations to come. That's the view of the president of the National Council of Women, Beverly Richards, on the commemoration of the International Day of the Girl Child, celebrated on October 11th annually. The day was recognized by the United Nations in 2012. Richards noted that the National Council of Women is concerned with the number of issues affecting young girls, including sexual violence and early childhood marriages.
1/3 of adolescent girls report that their first sexual experience has been forced. This limits them from reaching their full potential. This is also a human rights violation. We urge our young girls to place high values on themselves, so you will not be distracted nor allow others to take advantage of you. Value your education. Don't take it for granted. More than 200 girls kidnapped in Nigeria are still missing. They were in pursuit of an education. We take the example of our youngest Nobel Peace Prize winner, 17-year-old Malala Yousafzai of Pakistan, who at 15 years stood up against the Taliban and was shot because she wanted an education. You are never too young to make a difference. We call on young boys and men to stand up for their sisters, their aunts, their mothers, as we stand together to empower adolescent girls and end the cycle of violence.
Meanwhile, Gender Affairs Minister Frederick Stevenson, in a statement on the International Day of the Girl Child, said while there are challenges worldwide facing girls, he can proudly say that both boys and girls are treated equally in all aspects of state mechanism.
Equal access to education and health care. I'm still very concerned that incidences of sexual nature still occur apace. Too many of our males and senior male figures continue to indiscriminately harass and molest our children, especially our girls. The sad thing is that when the matters are reported to the police and the investigations are completed and the matter is brought to the court, too many parents, yes, too many parents, especially the mothers, come to the courts and say that they are not offering any evidence. This is the most sad part because the scar remains on our girls for life, and this certainly can have a ripple effect down the road.
General Manager of Century Insurance Limited, Fidel Taylor, has a warning for all drivers. In an interview with SVG-TV News, Taylor says the Argyle International Airport, currently under construction, is expected to bring a large number of tourists to SVG, whom he says are accustomed to and expect a high standard of driving. According to Taylor, drinking, texting while driving, driving recklessly, and endangering the lives of these individuals is not going to cut it, and could possibly ruin the local tourism sector.
At the end of the day, we have to prepare ourselves for the future. You would have heard from Roger what is taking place worldwide and the predictions in terms of the rising accidents and deaths and bodily injuries, particularly in the Caribbean. We are already getting our fair share in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have to date about 9 fatalities. We have the coming on stream of an international airport which is going to demand standards and change in the attitudes and conduct of our drivers. Tourists not going to come and want to jump in any taxi or vans with people doing as they feel, speeding, drinking and driving, texting and using cell phones. Where they are coming from, they are accustomed to standards, rules and regulations, and they are going to demand it. And this program is coming in a timely manner so that we can be proactive, we can prepare ourselves before something happened tragically.
Taylor used the opportunity to encourage drivers to be a part of a one-day defensive driving program, which he says will better equip them for the road. The program is scheduled for next month and is being facilitated by Century Insurance. The National Stewards Council of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Teachers Union, the SVG-TU, was established on Wednesday this week. The council will be launched during Teachers Solidarity Week from November 9th to 15th. The National Stewards Council will be managed by 5 officers who were elected by school stewards from across the country. Their role is to assist in coordinating the work of the SVG-TU and be involved in monitoring the performances of the national and branch executive members. They will also ensure that the decisions and programs made at both the biennial convention and the national general meetings are executed. The officers elected to serve are Chairman Philip Jacobs, Vice Chair Vincent Benjamin, Secretary Jan Providence, Assistant Secretary Cassandra King, and Committee Member Nolan Allen.